And now for your business news. U.S. manufacturing shrank for the third straight month in May. The Institute for Supply Management reported that its manufacturing PMI edged down to a sixth-month low. This suggests that manufacturing did not benefit from a de-escalation between the Trump administration and China. The ISM survey also found that suppliers were taking longer to make deliveries. This usually means a strong economy, but in this case, slow delivery likely came from bottlenecks in supply chains related to tariffs. Google will be investing $500 million to overhaul its compliance structure over the next decade. This was revealed in the paperwork to settle litigation brought on by shareholders. The search engine giant was accused of antitrust violations. The changes will include creating a standalone board committee to oversee risk and compliance. Google denied any wrongdoing in agreeing to settle. The settlement still requires approval by a U.S. district judge in San Francisco. Next, people are preferring to eat at home, and that's boosting Campbell's earnings reports. The company beat third quarter sales and profit estimates. Campbell's CEO noted that consumers continue to cook at home and focus their spending on products that help them stretch their food budgets. But that means cutting down on snacks. Campbell's volume for its meals and beverages unit rose while its snacks business fell. Oil prices made a significant jump on Wall Street Monday morning. The rise comes after Ukraine's large-scale drone strikes deep inside Russia over the weekend. The attack is stoking geopolitical concerns. U.S. oil climbed nearly 3.5% to $62.85 a barrel. Brent crude, the world benchmark, jumped just over 4.5% to $65.67 a barrel. It's the first time in months that concerns about the Russia-Ukraine war have sharply lifted energy prices. And President Trump is asking Congress to make steep spending cuts to next year's budget. The request comes as some GOP senators are skeptical of the big budget bill now working its way through the Senate. NTD's Melina Wisecup has more.
More details are out on the president's so-called skinny budget request. He wants more than $160 billion in cuts to non-defense spending and an increase to defense spending. The administration's cuts target a list of agencies, including the Departments of Agriculture, Education, Housing and Urban Development, and more. The more detailed request comes as the fate of Trump's big beautiful bill awaits Senate action. Senator Rand Paul says the math isn't adding up.
It's a vehicle for increasing spending for the military and for the border. It's about $320 billion in new spending. To put that in perspective, that's more than all the DOGE cuts that we found so far.
And he's not alone. Senator Ron Johnson expressed similar concerns, and Senator Rick Scott said on the Katz Roundtable on Sunday, quote, "Unfortunately, the House bill cuts spending over the next 10 years by something like 1.7%. There's a lot more we have to do." Despite the road bumps in the Senate, the White House still expects the bill by July 4th.
So the one thing I could say is that we're 100% confident that this bill is going to pass, because in the end, the senators who are worried about the bill understand that you're going to cast the economy into recession and vote for the biggest tax hike in history if you vote against the bill.
Senators are back in D.C. this week, where they're expected to make changes to the House's bill. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
Bad news for recent college graduates. Economists say this is the worst job market in years for young people. The overall national jobless rate stands at 4.2%. However, Oxford Economics says the unemployment rate for people aged 22 to 27 years old with at least a bachelor's degree is consistently higher than the national rate. The Bureau of Labor Statistics shows the unemployment rate for those aged 20 to 24 is even worse at 8.2%. That's nearly twice as high as the national average. According to professional networking platform LinkedIn, entry-level hiring is down 23% compared to March 2020. A multi-billion-dollar deal going up against best-selling cancer drug Keytruda. Biopharmaceutical company Bristol Myers Squibb has agreed to pay $11 billion to partner with Germany's BioNTech. Together, they will develop BioNTech's next-generation cancer immunotherapy drug, BNT327. This drug would address multiple solid tumor types. There has been a push across the pharma sector to master a new dual-action cancer treatment that activates the immune system. This is similar to Merck's Keytruda, which also cuts a tumor's blood supply. BioNTech said that that drug currently dominates the market with $29.5 billion in sales last year. Chinese Communist Party officials have publicly expressed respect for Harvard University as a major contributor to the governing skills of party leaders. So much so that the CCP calls Harvard their party school. NTD's Sean Marshall has more on that and what Harvard's been doing to keep its Chinese students with CCP affiliations.
A recent Wall Street Journal article says that Harvard has trained so many Chinese Communist officials, they call it their party school, with Harvard's Kennedy School of Government favored by up-and-coming CCP members seeking career boosts.
The United States, I further can say here, will not tolerate the CCP's exploitation of U.S. universities or theft of U.S. research, intellectual property, or technologies to grow its military power, conduct intelligence collection, or repress voices of opposition.
Top CCP officials who have graduated from Harvard's governance programs include a former party vice chairman and party leader Xi Jinping's top negotiator in trade talks with the first Trump administration. The school has come under scrutiny as of late by the Trump administration. Among several reasons, the administration cites Harvard's ties to China. Those include long-standing research partnerships and China-focused academic centers. There's even a term for children of high-ranking CCP officials, princelings, who are known to have attended Harvard. Xi Jinping's daughter is one of them.
The Trump administration is focused on protecting our nation and our citizens by upholding our national security and public safety through our visa process, obviously very openly and transparently applied by Secretary Marco Rubio.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Wednesday that the U.S. will, quote, aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields. That applies to a broad swath of the hundreds of thousands of Chinese university students in the U.S. After this move against Harvard, the Chinese Foreign Ministry vowed to, quote, firmly safeguard the legitimate rights and interests of its students overseas. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Next, U.S. government debt is, quote, sound and still favored by investors. That's the sentiment shared by Taiwan's central bank yesterday. It added that there are no worries about the U.S. dollar's position as the leading international reserve currency. Some have expressed doubts about the dollar's safe haven status after President Trump's sweeping tariffs were announced. The central bank was responding to what it described as market concerns about U.S. bonds and the dollar. On its website, it explained that there is no cause for alarm. It said in part that U.S. public debt is stable and has good liquidity. Taiwan's central bank reports that it has about $580 billion in foreign exchange reserves, and more than 80% of that is in U.S. Treasury bonds. At-home health tests delivered straight to your door. There's a growing list of FDA-approved tests that you can take in the privacy of your own home.
Letters, bills, ads, and tests for thyroid function and HIV. All of these can be found in a mailbox. The list of available at-home tests approved by the Food and Drug Administration continues to grow. One of the most recent is the first at-home cervical cancer tests. Now, there are two types of at-home tests. One type gives instant results, like tests for pregnancy or COVID-19. For the other type, a person collects a sample and sends it to a lab. That's how the new cervical cancer test works. The tests are being praised for making it easier for people to access health care. This is especially true for those who live in rural areas or are anxious about invasive or sensitive medical exams. At the same time, experts warn that most at-home tests simply cannot replace an actual in-person visit with a doctor. The available tests range from thyroid function to HIV. The cost can range anywhere from $15 to $400. One doctor reminds people to make sure the tests they use are FDA approved.
Google announced it will appeal a U.S. judge's ruling that found the company maintains an illegal monopoly in online search and advertising. The company posted on X that it believes the court's original ruling was incorrect. The statement follows a hearing on Friday where U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta considered action to address Google's alleged illegal monopoly in online search and advertising. Judge Mehta proposed less aggressive corrective measures than those suggested by federal antitrust enforcers. The Department of Justice has demanded structural changes, including forcing Google to divest its Google Ad Manager platform. Google's attorney argued to the court that the company has already taken steps to reduce competitive concerns, such as ending exclusive agreements with smartphone makers. If you're planning a solo trip, there's something you should know before booking a flight. 3 of the biggest U.S. airlines have been charging higher fares for solo flyers than those traveling in groups. That's according to the consumer travel website Thrifty Traveler. A recent investigation found this is happening on dozens of domestic one-way flights, though it is not widespread. Thrifty Traveler said Delta, United, and American Airlines are all currently charging a so-called tax on single travelers on certain flights. However, Delta said the fare structures are not new to the airline or to the industry in general. Global Airlines shaved a key forecast for its 2025 industry-wide profits today. It blamed declining consumer confidence while criticizing the delays of jetliner deliveries, saying it has hindered their growth plans. Here's more.
The world's airlines have cut their profit hopes for the year amid trade turmoil. Industry body IATA now expects a collective profit of $36 billion for 2025. Speaking at IATA's annual meeting in New Delhi over the weekend, boss Willie Walsh said the headline for profitability masked serious vulnerabilities.
Although our revenue forecast is down, our cost forecast is also down. And that leaves us with a net position which is broadly similar to what we had previously forecast at $36 billion US. Lovely figure, very big by any measure, but when you translate that into margin, it's a margin of 3.7%, and that remains a wafer-thin margin for the airline industry.
Delays in the delivery of new jets are another problem for the industry. Major jet makers Boeing and Airbus have both been dogged by a variety of supply chain issues, with the European firm warning last month that delivery delays would last for another 3 years. Such problems have forced carriers to keep operating older, less efficient planes. They've also faced rising prices for the dwindling stock of available spare parts. However, that has been offset by a drop in oil prices. IATA predicted a 4.7% drop in cargo revenues for the year, with tariffs dampening trade and cutting global growth.
Regeneron Pharmaceuticals said today it will buy genetic testing firm 23andMe through a bankruptcy auction. It promised to prioritize the ethical use of DNA data from its customers. Here's more.
Regeneron Pharmaceuticals said on Monday it will buy genetic testing firm 23andMe Holding for $256 million through a bankruptcy. It also promised to prioritize the ethical use of customers' DNA data, a response to concerns over privacy after 23andMe's Chapter 11 filing. Regeneron aims to bolster its capabilities in genomics-driven drug discovery by integrating 23andMe's trove of over 15 million customer DNA profiles, collected via its popular direct-to-consumer saliva testing kits. The genomics firm, which was a trailblazer in ancestry DNA testing, faced dwindling demand for its core services and reputational damage from a 2023 data breach that exposed sensitive genetic and personal information of millions of users. The hack and subsequent bankruptcy filing has drawn scrutiny from lawmakers who warned that millions of customers' genetic data could be sold to unscrupulous buyers. Regeneron on Monday said it will uphold 23andMe's existing privacy policies and comply with all applicable data protection laws. One analyst told Reuters the investments in genomics make good strategic sense for Regeneron, but might take a decade or more to see a return. The court is scheduled to consider approval of the transaction on June 17th.
Moving on, Dior is appointing its menswear designer Jonathan Anderson to also head women's wear designs. It widens his role as Dior seeks to reignite sales. Here's more.
Dior will appoint Jonathan Anderson to head its women's wear designs and haute couture. The LVMH-owned label confirmed Monday he will take over from Maria Grazia Chiuri. It further widens his role at the fashion giant, where he's already its menswear designer. LVMH CEO Bernard Arnault called Anderson one of the greatest creative talents of his generation. The French fashion house named the 40-year-old as head of menswear designs in April. The award-winning Irish designer generated buzz around his previous role at Loewe. Fashion critics were impressed by his quirky designs that caught the attention at the Spanish label. The move comes with the sector currently struggling to recover from a prolonged slump. The luxury industry has been hit by China's property crisis and economic uncertainty in the US. Top luxury houses have bet on new design directions to help bring back shoppers.
The S&P 500 closed higher today as investors remained optimistic about ongoing trade negotiations. This despite President Trump announcing plans to double tariffs on steel and aluminum to 50%. The U.S. is urging trading partners to submit their best offers. U.S. steel stocks rose while automakers fell. Energy stocks also gained after OPEC Plus maintained output levels, and tech stocks like Nvidia and Meta advanced, though Tesla declined on weaker European sales. That's it for today's Business Matters.